Former FBI Director James Comey handled the hot seat with Hillary, Trump, and Congress. But can he take the heat at the Hot Topics table? He's live on The View right now. How his scathing book attacking the president has made him public enemy #1 with the White House. Why Trump's calling for him to be jailed. The brutal backlash from Democrats and Republicans for going public about Hillary's email investigation days before the election. Did he cost her the presidency? Does he believe that the most shocking claims in the Russia investigation are true and that Trump broke the law? And will he be called back to testify for Robert Mueller? It all happens live right now with Whoopi, Sarah Haynes, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Meghan McCain. Now, let's get things started.
We'll be here in a bit, but we have to start by saying goodbye to the matriarch of the Bush political dynasty, former First Lady Barbara Bush. She passed away yesterday and at 91, and she's kind of an amazing woman, right?
Duped enforcer by her family. But one of my favorite quotes she said at Wellesley College in a commencement address, at the end of your life, you will never regret not having passed one more test, not winning one more verdict, or not closing one more deal. You will regret time not spent with a husband, a friend, a child, or a parent.
Yeah.
And wiser words.
Yeah.
Wow.
We also want to point out the bravery of Tammy Jo Schultz. She's a Southwest pilot who managed to land a flight after a blown-out engine tore a hole in it at 32,000 feet. One passenger, Jennifer Reardon, did not make it, and of course our hearts go out to her family. But my God, that's
scary.
You know, that's under pressure.
Yeah,
that is under pressure.
Such a tragedy that this woman, a mother of 2 children and a wife and a daughter, lost her life.
Yeah.
But this pilot saved.
She saved
a lot of other lives.
Yeah,
So
it's extraordinary.
really
It's like
Sullisberger.
Yeah,
Sully.
Yeah.
And she was, if you listen to the audio, the calmness, I mean, the engine's out. I mean, if the engine were out, I'd be like, the engine's out. Like, so, I mean, heroism under pressure like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, because you know how I am on a plane.
Oh,
so,
I'm with you.
My foot's not on.
I'd be boiled, I'd be bald, I'd be, you know.
I know.
So to know that there are pilots that have that thing, you know, makes it easier to get up in the air.
One guy I was watching, when he realized they were going down, he thought he was going to die. He opened his computer and FaceTimed with a loved one. He said the first thing he thought was to talk to somebody he loved.
Yeah.
Isn't that odd?
Yeah.
It's but that's what, you know, that's what our machines allow us to do now in a place like that. But, you know, the other thing that happened yesterday was Stormy Daniels gave her only live TV interview here yesterday, where she revealed a sketch of the man she claims threatened her for talking about her affair with you-know-who. And I guess you-know-who was watching, because he tweeted a sketch years later about a non-existent man, a total con job, playing the fake news media for fools, but they know it. Listen, babe. It ain't us, you know? This is the first time you tweeting about Stormy. You know? This is the first time you tweet. So...
And that's what's so incredible. I know his lawyers are like pulling their hair out because you are the subject of a federal investigation. The last thing you want your client doing is tweeting about the subject of a federal investigation. I mean, it's just amazing, right? That's why Michael Avenatti is such a superstar, because Michael Avenatti's a genius. He just got the president to weigh in on Stormy Daniels.
But if there's nothing there...
Or the View did. I mean, our show may have had a little to do. I take such pride in the idea that now we have validation that the president watches our show.
He sure watches the show.
I've been on Fox for a while.
He loves Joy.
Just
Definitely
Joy.
tunes in every day to watch.
All I can say is if he didn't sleep with her, and why did they pay him $130,000?
Yeah.
And if this sketch is not real, then why do you care about it? Just ignore it. He can't because he's
Well, in the words of many people, cállate la boca.
See,
I know that one. Shut your mouth.
he can't.
You know, because you're not helping your own case.
You're right.
Hush. Hush.
But maybe
words
somebody's sitting
of
around the West Wing watching Joy, though. That's not so bad.
In the words of Ralph Cramden, you're a blabbermouth.
And there, of course, have been a lot of other hot topics happening. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley was just thrown under the bus by the White House over Russian sanctions, and the Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch sided with liberals on an immigration case. But we're not going to talk about that today because we have former FBI Director James Comey here live right after that.
Up next, former FBI Director James Comey is live on The View. His vicious war of words with the president, handling the backlash from both sides of the aisle, and answering accusations he betrayed the FBI. Hilarious, opinionated, fearless. Yeah, the women of The View check all these boxes. But hey, so does
I want to punch you right in your dumb face right now.
Amy Schumer.
That's me. That's me.
The View.
DJ, hit it.
Ooh, you don't want to miss this.
So, former FBI Director James Comey's memoir, A Higher Loyalty, is a record-breaking bestseller that is blowing up the internet, making a whole lot of people really pissed off. So we obviously have a lot to talk to him about. Please welcome James Comey. I gotta tell you, I've been listening. It's all right, y'all. He'll be here. It's all right. He's not going anywhere. It's all right.
They don't always give a standing ovation, though, when a guest comes on, and they did that with you.
But I'm really, because I'm listening to it on Audible, because it's easier for me to absorb books. And I have to say, I learned so much more about you, and it just kind of knocked me out, and it made me want to ask you, what prompted the book? Why did you decide to write it now?
Yeah, thank you for that. And thanks for having me here. This is the interview that meant the most to my wife, so thanks for, thanks for letting me on. So I'm actually a little nervous, because I don't want to screw that up. But what prompted me to write the book was a feeling that I could be useful if I shared some of the lessons I've learned through my life about what leadership should look like. And one of the things I've learned from my wife is when something bad happens, you should try to make something good come from it. Not to make it worth it, but because that's your obligation. And so I didn't love the idea of people yelling my name on the street and whatnot, but I think I had something useful to say, and I hope it's useful to people for a long time. But that's why I wrote it.
Right. Director Comey, you know, you're not naive to the criticism you've gotten from Republicans and Democrats. And I think it's worth noting that David Axelrod, a big Democrat who's a former chief strategist to President Obama, said, I have no doubt about its brilliance when it comes to book sales. Maybe he should have called it higher royalties. What do you say to people like him and people like me that think you're just doing this for money and attention?
Yeah, first thing I do is ask him to read the book. And I'm not saying he should agree with me, but if he reads the book, he will see I'm trying to make choices between bad options and doing it in a way that I think you would want someone as director of the FBI to do it. So even if you leave the book still thinking I'm an idiot, you realize I'm actually kind of an honest idiot, and I'm not on anybody's side.
I think anyone who got to your level is an idiot. I would never accuse anyone of that. I think that maybe J. Edgar Hoover is rolling over in his grave at saying the types of things you're saying and revealing the types of things you're revealing. It doesn't seem like something that the director of the FBI. Why are you laughing?
Well, because J. Edgar, really, he's the wrong guy to bring up.
wonder what dress he's wearing.
But he didn't write a tell-all when he left.
Yeah.
So
did he say that he was a trans?
Can I finish my question?
Yeah.
Director? So what would you say to that?
That I don't think of it as a tell-all. It's a whole lot more than the stories that are in the last few mistakes I've made, things I'm very much ashamed of, I did when I was younger. It's a story about portions of my life to try and tell a story. It has no classified information in it, has no sensitive investigative information in it, and I know that because I wrote it and because the FBI reviewed it.
Right.
So I think J. Edgar Hoover would say you followed the rules and you did it. And you were transparent. I mean, if J. Edgar Hoover had a number of flaws, one of them was he wasn't a transparent person. It was all about secret files. I'm trying to tell a story that in a lot of places doesn't reflect well on me, that's open and honest.
So do you think the future of the FBI is transparency?
I think it has to be a huge part of the FBI because public confidence in the FBI is its bedrock. We have to show people our work when we can, as often as possible, so they have confidence in us.
Even if that means your second in command was fired for lying 4 times. So this is where I think the confusion comes from. Your second in command, McCabe, was fired for lying multiple times within the FBI. You defended his character on Twitter. That's okay. Lying is okay internally.
No, it's definitely not. In fact, the McCabe case illustrates what an organization that's committed to the truth looks like. We investigated I ordered that investigation. We investigate and hold people accountable. Good people lie. I lay out in the book, I think I'm a good person where I've lied. I still believe Andrew McCabe is a good person, but the Inspector General found that he lied, and there's severe consequences in the Justice Department for lying, as there should be throughout the government.
All right, let me ask you this. This morning you said you're no longer a Republican. There's a list of people like that right now, I notice. What made you say that?
I feel like the Republican Party left me and people like me. I used to think that at the heart of being a conservative, lowercase c, was first that character matters, and second that values matter most of all. And I don't know where that is today in the Republican Party, and so I'm just not comfortable being part of it.
Which part bothers you, though? Is it the fact that they stick by Trump no matter what he does and says?
Well, it's that the sticking by reflects an abandonment of what I thought were the core principles of the Republican Party, that character matters, truth-telling matters, values matter.
Deficits matter.
Then we'll talk about policies. Yeah. But even policies come after values. American values are all we have as a country. So I used to think the Republican Party believed that and then said, let's make sure we fight for values, then we'll talk about policies. And it seems like they've decided that if we get these policy wins, it's okay to trade these other things for that, and that's a dangerous bargain in my view, and so I don't want to be part of it.
Okay. Wow. Well, and I've said this on this show before, when I was at the Justice Department, and I think it continues, your character was unassailable, and I consider you a patriot.
Thank you for that.
And I think you lost your job because of it. So President Trump actually told Lester Holt that he had the Russia thing on his mind in making the decision to fire you. He recently tweeted this morning that actually the Russia thing wasn't a factor. Slippery James Comey, the worst FBI director in history, was not fired because of the phony Russia investigation.
Well, he said it.
He did say it.
We have it on tape.
Which he changed his mind, Joy.
Which version do you believe? Why do you believe you were fired?
I don't know. I took him at his word when he told that to Lester Holt, and I read in the media that he also said that privately to the Russians the next day in the Oval Office. So I took him at his word. Today's tweet, which I've seen, I don't follow him on Twitter, but I've seen the tweet. Both of those things can't be true. I actually think that illustrates part of the problem that I'm trying to bring up, that it matters that the president is not committed to the truth as a Central American value. But so I don't know what to make of it.
Do you think that his base will believe him now, or that he didn't mean that, or he didn't say that? I mean, he seems to say these crazy things, and then he still keeps that same base of following him and liking him. What is that?
I don't know. And look, I get and appreciate people's passion on the policy front, but what I hope people will take the time to realize is, as I said about the Republican Party, there's something that actually matters first and above that, and there's a danger. Look, when he tweets that I should be in jail, my honest reaction is a shrug, like, there's another one of those. But then I stop myself and say, wait a minute, there's danger in my shrug, because that means I'm becoming numb to the fact that the President of the United States of America is saying that a private citizen should be in jail. That's not okay, right? That is not normal.
Right. But one thing I wanted to ask you is, in the book, you say that Trump sought loyalty like a mafia boss. His whole platform when he ran was he was an outsider. So people like me found comfort in knowing there were career people like you around him to help, even though that might not be in your job description. So when he sought loyalty, is it possible that he didn't think that was wrong and maybe you could have said, hey, this isn't how that works?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Maybe, although I think that he had to know, because he asked me at the beginning of the dinner, and that really caught by surprise, so I just stared at him. But then, before he returned to it, much later in the dinner, I interrupted him at a couple different points to explain the importance of the distance between the institutions of justice and the president, why it matters and why it's actually in the president's interest. So I think by the time he came around to asking for it again, I'd already told him why it mattered that I was not close to him and why that would be inappropriate. Now,
would you do it differently now?
I think in fairness, that's the reason I said maybe is, if I had it to do over again, I might have said, hey, Mr. President, I'd have to interrupt because that's the way it works. Mr. President, that's not something you can do for the reasons I just explained to you. And I didn't do that, and if I had to do it over again, I'd have done it better, I think.
People like Alan Dershowitz say you didn't have the courage to, though.
Well, actually, who knows what's happening except me? And that means we'll be right back with more with James Golden.
Up next, does James Comey think President Trump's getting ready to fire Russia investigator Robert Mueller? And has Mueller called back Comey to testify?
I would have won but for Jim Comey's letter on October 28th. That stopped my momentum, and it really did cause enough people to move away from me. Some of them moved to Trump, some moved to third parties, some didn't vote, but the net effect was pretty clear.
Okay, before we even get into that, we got to get into something else because, you know, stuff is happening while we're on air. Yes, Sonny?
Yeah, I have in front of me a letter that was drafted by 11 House Republicans. They've sent this letter to the Department of Justice and the FBI.
Yeah.
They are requesting a criminal investigation of you, Director Comey, as well as Hillary Clinton, Loretta Lynch, Andrew McCabe, FBI agents Peter Strzok, and FBI counsel Lisa Page. And it appears that they are alleging potential violations of the law regarding the Clinton and Trump investigations. They're arguing that your decision not to seek charges against Clinton for her use of a private email server suggests an improper investigative conduct, potentially motivated by a political agenda. And they are also saying that you leaked classified information, and they refer to the 7 memos you wrote about your conversations with the president.
How do you respond? Respond in real time?
I'm sorry to
I know I'm
lay
doing a
that
lot
on
of
you.
shrugging today, but I haven't read it. I don't know what to make of it. It seems they've been saying that stuff since the Clinton email investigation. A whole lot of that's already being looked at by the Inspector General at the Department of Justice, which is a very good thing. And I don't have any other reaction.
Okay.
The accusations are not true. I guess I should have said that first, but that's okay.
Well, you're in good company. There's a lot of people in there.
Yeah, but look, I have confidence in the institution of the Inspector General, and maybe they'll, on the Clinton email investigation, maybe they'll criticize me, maybe they won't, but whatever they do, I believe in that institution. They hold people accountable, and that's the way it should be. It shouldn't be done by tweet or letters. Let's let the institution do its work.
Well, let me criticize you on the Hillary Clinton investigation, because you said that you reopened the investigation into Hillary's private email server 11 days before the election because, quote unquote, I was operating in a world where Hillary Clinton was going to beat Donald Trump. Now, should the FBI have taken it upon himself, on yourself, to guess who was going to win? I mean, that seems out of your purview. Like, you know, oh, well, I'm listening to polls, and therefore this is how I'm going to behave. That doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah, no, and it's right. If that was what I did, I would have that same concern. What I explained in the book is I intentionally did not consider polls. In fact, one of my very best people, a woman in the general counsel's office, asked me, should you consider that what you're about to do may help elect Donald Trump president?
Yeah.
And I said, Great question, but not for a moment, because down that path lies the death of the FBI as an independent force. If we ever start considering whose fortunes will be affected in what way, where that comes from in the book is, I'm trying to be tough on myself in the book and ask, could you have implicitly, even though you intentionally didn't consider it, could it have shaped you in some way? And the answer is, of course it could have. It wouldn't change the decision. I faced two terrible options. I could speak about restarting the investigation in a huge way, or I, in my view, could conceal that. Which do I choose of those? Speaking would be really bad, concealing would be catastrophic, and so I choose the least bad option. But not because if Donald Trump had been up 20 points in the polls, the framing would be the same and the choice would be the same.
But you were consciously thinking she's going to win.
No, I don't remember that. What I'm asking in the book is...
Isn't that what you said to George Stephanopoulos?
Well, what I said in George Stephanopoulos, I think, is everyone was assuming she was going to be elected president. I intentionally didn't think about that, but because it was part of the air, could that have shaped my thinking? Because it was just an underlying assumption. And the honest answer is, of course it could have. I intentionally remember not thinking about that, but of course it could. I'd be a fool to say it couldn't have had any impact on me. But the most important thing is, the answer would be the same. In my view, reasonable people can disagree. You have to speak in that situation, even though that sucks, because not speaking would be a fraud on the American people and concealing a lie.
Let me ask you this, because maybe you could have worded it differently. Instead of saying you were, reopening the investigation, maybe it should have been, we got a whole bunch of new emails, and we just want to cross-check them to make sure that we're not missing anything, as opposed to, when you say you're reopening the investigation, it feels like, oh, they must have found something else must be happening. And I think it might have gone to that, but also, you've done this to Republicans and Democrats. You've opened investigations that have pissed lots of people off. Why do you think this is pissing everybody off more? Because you've pissed a lot. I mean, in listening to the book and remembering all of the presidents you served, the Bushes were not happy with you at certain points. Why is everybody now more? Have you changed how you've done stuff?
I don't think so. I think there's a unique level of partisan division in our country, far greater than when I served in the Bush administration, and I think that is in part the explanation for the anger. People assume in our country, not all people, but most partisans assume everybody's on a side. And so they look at my actions, and every one of my actions they view through whose side is he on, whose team is he on, which is why the Clinton people are mad at me and the Trump people. Both can't be true. I can't be on Trump's side and Clinton's side. But the truth is, I really worked hard not to be on anybody's side. But that, in today's America, that's confusing and infuriating. And the other problem is, there was no opportunity to lay out, as I've tried to do in the book, look, here's what we thought about. Even if you think we're wrong, here's how we made that decision.
Well, can I interject on that? Because I want to believe you're not a political person. You're the head of the FBI, but you write in your book about how you went to President Obama and you were on the verge of tears, saying you were going to miss him. You also said that you were dreading the next 4 years with Trump. You said very incendiary things about my party this morning. It doesn't reflect all values. It's transactional. It's ego-driven. It's in service to his ego. I'm a Republican who has many issues with Trump. That is not reflective of my party as a whole. The big issue I have is I don't want to know your politics. And a lot of the things you're saying and doing are highly political. And I just don't understand what you gain trying to sort of clear the deck here by bringing things like this up.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think of it as my politics. I think of it as my values. I mean, what I missed...
Your wife, and you talked about in George Stephanopoulos how she was at the Women's March and she was very sad on election night.
Sure.
And,
Well,
but why bring up politics now? No disrespect, but what your take on the current Republican Party is, I'm more interested in what you know about national security.
I brought it up because I was asked about it.
I know, but I don't. But you have to understand how this looks to Republicans. Okay?
I get that. I think that's a good question. I get that the Republicans are thinking that, but in the book, I'm telling a story about the decisions and including lots.
I'm talking about your interview this morning. I'm ego-driven in service to Trump's ego. It doesn't reflect values at all. I just don't understand why you're so. You sound like a political commentator to me more than
I don't
an
mean
old
to
director.
be. I don't care whether people support a Republican or a Democrat, because I'm not either. I don't care who they support. I hope the conversation will start with values and come to policy second, because we're always going to fight about guns and taxes and immigration, but all we are as this country is a collection of values, and that's what unites Republicans and Democrats. that's not a political statement.
And did you talk about politics when you were the FBI director? You're a private citizen now.
Oh, heck no. And in fact, I didn't vote. I tried not to follow the back and forth and tried not to and didn't engage with my wife on what I was doing. She's an entirely separate and wonderful, by the way, human being.
And from Iowa.
And from Iowa. But, yeah, I'm trying to tell the story in the book of my family and how it affected them, but I really don't think of that as politics. I really don't.
All right. Well, you know, we're keeping them.
Right.
We'll be right back.
I lost where all that went.
Before we start, I just wanted to say the music's very deep.
Very Law and
It's
Order.
like dun, dun, dun.
Very Law and Order.
It's very Law and Order.
Very Law
Go
and
ahead,
Order.
son. We're back, by the way.
You know, I worked at the Justice Department as an AUSA in D.C., and the policy was, and I believe it still is that you cannot comment on an ongoing investigation. And that is because it compromises the integrity of the investigation. And while I've always been such a fan of yours, quite frankly, I was surprised that you commented on the reopening of Clinton's investigation, because really that is against everything that I learned and that I believed in when I was at the Justice Department. I didn't understand it.
When you opened it, then you closed it. Then you opened it, then you closed it. Is it fair to say you suffer from premature interpretation?
You commented.
Do I have to answer that?
No. You commented on this investigation, and I'm still confused by that.
Yeah, and as are a lot of thoughtful people. You're exactly right. The Justice Department's policy is we don't comment on investigations, except if there's an overriding public interest, we need to reassure the public, or there's law enforcement activity that would otherwise be evident that we need to explain. The Hillary Clinton investigation opened in the middle of 2015. We didn't comment on it for 3 months, even though it had begun with a public referral. The whole world knew we were doing it. We applied that same policy. We decided, Loretta Lynch decided that it wasn't appropriate until the beginning of October. So that's the rule. We announced the closure of it. The problem we faced the nightmare we faced in late October was we've told the American people something that is no longer true. That justifies an exception to the normal rule, because if we don't tell them, we don't choose between speak and conceal, if we just put the pillow over our head and go back to sleep, we will have defrauded the American people. That's how I thought about it. So you're absolutely right. Extraordinary exception. I believe it's a 500-year flood. I pray no future leader of the Department of Justice has to deal with it, but that's what we faced.
But, Director, then why not tell the American people that there was an investigation going on with Russia about the very bedrock of our democracy, that the Russians were colluding, perhaps, to attack our democracy? Shouldn't have the vote, if you're going to comment on one investigation, why would you not comment on another if you're going to break that rule?
Right.
Why not break it when it's probably more important?
Yeah, another great question. I actually think our handling of the two illustrates our adherence to the rule. There are two things that were going on in the summer of 2016. One was, in late July, we opened counterintelligence investigations on a very small group of Americans, not Donald Trump, trying to understand, is there some connection between these people and the other thing that's going on in the summer of 16, which is a huge Russian effort to mess with our election.
Right.
Talking about those two things, we actually focused on what should we say about the entire Russian effort. There actually was no serious discussion about disclosing a counterintelligence investigation that had just started because we didn't know whether we had anything. We didn't want to tip off these Americans that we were looking at them. And what would we say? We've just started looking, and there may be something there, and it doesn't involve Donald Trump, and so we couldn't see. In fact, it was so obvious there wasn't an exception. We didn't debate it. What we debated, and what President Obama struggled with, is, should we tell the American people about the other thing, the big Russian effort?
Yes.
And I thought we should, and offered in August to be the person who did it.
Yeah.
And I wrote a draft op-ed for a major newspaper saying, the Russians are coming for our election. America needs to know about it. And they didn't take me up on the offer. They deliberated. I know why President Obama struggled. Because if you do it, have you accomplished the Russians' goal? They want to undermine confidence in our election. So if the President of the United States says the Russians are messing with us, did they just undermine confidence in our election? So I know why this was so hard for him.
But you
Hold
did
on.
want to disclose it.
But we are coming back with more with
yes, I
James
did.
Comey. Hey, so we're back with James Comey.
Okay, Director Comey, one thing I wanted to know, when I read the book, you reference Trump's possible self-tanning, the size of his hands, his hair. I understand why you did that, because you've said over and over you were setting the stage, you were taking the reader in the room with you. But as someone that's holding you to a certain standard in this book to show the credibility you tout, this is a higher calling, you know, a leadership, was it worth it when we've seen that already at the expense of possibly some credibility? Because optically, it's a Trump game to talk about those things. That's what he does.
I think you're right. If I had it to do over again, I wouldn't put that paragraph in, even though just because it gave people a handhold who hadn't read the book to attack the book. And I just want people to read the book so it can be useful to them. Yeah. But that would have made it inconsistent with everything else. One of my heroes was my first boss when I worked in a grocery store. I describe him in great detail, his shoes, his pants, his belt, And so I wasn't trying to pick on him. I really wasn't trying to pick on Donald Trump. I could hear my editor's voice saying, bring the reader, bring the reader.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to do. And I wasn't making fun of his hands. In fact, I say in the book, his hands seem normal size to me. I'm not, I really was not. But now that I see...
You don't think that's throwing shade at his hand size, though?
Yeah, that was not my intention. But I do see people have seized onto that as a distraction. And so I'm answering honestly. If I had to do over again, I would tear that paragraph out, describe my boss, describe John Ashcroft's face as he laid in the intensive care, but leave out descriptions
You know
of
what?
Trump.
There's always a paperback. So, here's my question, though. You know, we had Stormy Daniels on yesterday. She was quite interesting, I thought, and all over the place.
Hope you don't say that about me tomorrow.
We will. But she, I think she's going to bring down Trump. A lot of people agree with that, rather than the Russian investigation. This is a crime. Some crime has been committed, and I think she's going to do it. What do you think?
I don't know. I really don't know.
But
And if I knew, I wouldn't say.
You wouldn't say.
But I don't know.
Not even a guess about the seriousness of the investigation? Well, we don't know what Mueller's got.
Well, I have
That's
no
the
idea.
problem.
There's been no leaks out of Director Mueller's
Yeah.
operation. I only know what I've seen in the newspapers, and so I don't have a view.
What if he fires Mueller? Where are you going to be with
Oh, my
that?
gosh. These are hypotheticals.
We're going to be in the streets is where we're going to be.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. And
you don't?
I don't, because it would make no sense for a bunch of reasons. It would make no difference in the investigation. The president would have to fire everyone in the Department of Justice and the FBI to stop an investigation. And so it doesn't make any sense to fire Director Mueller and bring the kind of storm that would bring. So I actually don't expect that to happen.
But we didn't think he'd fire
I
Mueller.
just thought the same thing. So
He fired you.
I'm not the best judge.
He goes there.
Yeah.
Well, we can agree that it would be political suicide if he did that. We are in agreement on that.
Yeah, and so I don't expect it, because I think that's right.
You cool?
Yeah, we're fine.
Sorry.
We'll be right back.
Hey, we are back with James Comey. So I have a really fast question for you. After everything, do you think that Hillary Clinton got justice?
In the sense of from the FBI and the Justice Department, I think she did. Whether in a broader sense she was treated fairly, that I can't answer. That's a serious question.
Okay.
Okay, we want you to finish a few sentences for us, okay?
Okay.
If I could say one thing to President Trump, it would be.
Oh, my gosh.
Keep it clean, this is
There's a 7-second delay. Don't worry about it.
I sound like someone hawking a book. I'd actually ask him, please read this book.
Okay. If I could say one thing to Hillary Clinton, it would be.
Please just read the chapters about you. There's 2. And because I know you feel I shivved you, but I think you may feel differently if you read those 2 chapters.
And after spending the hour with us on The View, you feel...
Like my wife is going to be happy.
I will,
Oh, yes. Twitter is having a field day guessing who will play you. Everybody from Ben Affleck, Vince Vaughn to John Cusack. Do you have a preference?
He's 6'8". Who's going to play him?
They're going to wear lifts.
He needs 2 actors.
A lot of weird angles
Vince
and things.
Vaughn's really tall.
Yeah, I guess
He
that's
is
right.
tall.
John Cusack would make you maybe a little goofier.
Yeah.
Do you want to be
I feel
goofy?
I could do
My
you
kids
justice.
want Kyle.
I was thinking LeBron James.
I feel like I could do you justice.
Someone will play you.
My kids' vote would be for Kyle Chandler from Friday Night
I
Lights.
love him. Clear eyes, full hearts.
Yeah, just for
Camus.
fans of the show, too.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Me too.
We have a little bit of time. I just have one more question.
Sure.
What is your end goal? I asked this yesterday. Like, what do you want people to really know? And people that are skeptical like me, because you have taken the heat at this table, which I appreciate. But, like, what do you really want people, the skeptics, to hear from you?
I'd like them to actually maybe forget me and take what I've started with this book and drive a conversation in this country about values. Because I think we need an inflection point to reset some of our partisanship, and I actually think we could center that on values. And then I'd like to get out of the way and not be walking down the street having people recognize me, but have the conversation that I was useful in trying to stimulate the conversation.
That horse is out of the barn. I'm afraid they're going to recognize you. They're going to.
It's very hard to
And
miss
thank you.
It's hard to miss you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank
you
you.
for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And the new book, A Higher Loyalty, is out now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming. Take a little time to enjoy the view.